4.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
From the ethereal realm of devotion to the practicality of daily spiritual practice, across the vast landscape of Vedic wisdom and teachings, this is Vaishnava Voices. Hosted by the dynamic husband and wife duo, Sitapati Das and Dana Devi, they bring to you an intimate exploration of the vibrant world of Vaishnavism. Interweaving ancient scriptures with modern contexts, personal stories with universal lessons, they illuminate the path of love, devotion, and conscious living.
Hare Krishna, and welcome everyone to another episode of Vaishnava Voices. I'm your co-host, Sitapati Das, and beside me, as always, is the wonderful Dana Devi. Today, as with every episode, we're diving deep into the heart of Vaishnava teachings, exploring the wisdom, culture, and practices that guide us towards a life filled with devotion and service.
That's right, Siddharpati. We are thrilled to have you on this journey with us. Whether you are a seasoned devotee, a spiritual seeker, or simply curious about Vaishnavism, here in Vaishnava Voices, we are all about fostering connection, understanding, and growth. And remember, we are not just exploring, we are also experiencing. So let's begin.
So sit back, prepare your hearts and minds, and tune into the sounds of the soul on Vaishnava Voices.
Oh, grand. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam, total world victory of Hare Krishna. My name is Sitapati Das,
And my name is Dana Devi.
and this is Vaishnava Voices, our episode for, what is it, the 2nd of September, 2023, second day of, what is it? It's called
Spring Day.
Spring. Yeah, spring has started. I'm going to expand that picture. Now, today we're expecting our guest Hrsikesh Das, Henry Doktorski. But there might be a little mix up with the timing. Last week he thought he was on when we had, who did we have last week?
My favorite one, Trinakarta Prabhu.
We had Trinakarta Prabhu come on, and Henry Doktorski was like, is it this week? I was like, no, it's next week. And then I wrote to him last night and he was all good. He said he'd try a few minutes early to see if it works. He might have the time mixed up or he might be dealing with something where he is. So we're going to give him a little bit of time to join, see what's happening. Send your intentions. Drop a comment if you're watching live online. Something's still wrong with the Facebook streaming. We can stream to the Vaishnava Voices page, but not to either of our profiles.
I wonder why. Yeah.
I don't
Being
know.
blocked? Or what?
I don't know. Denying the moon landing, maybe? It's my latest thing. That doesn't seem to be illegal yet. They haven't clamped down on moon landing denial, but it's got to be coming, right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
Tight control.
They love it.
Oh, yes.
I might set up another camera so we can have two camera angles. But next week we're going away for Janmashtami, so we don't have anything scheduled for next week, and I don't know, are we going to be able to do something? Maybe on the Wednesday.
Yeah, let's do something. You know, we always have people coming in, ideas coming.
We could
So-
always do a Vedic Intel report episode
Yeah, sure.
talking about the moon landing. I got to do one in depth about the moon landing denial. We got Konteya Das coming up. He can't make it for Wednesday. That's going to be after Janmashtami. So we're going up to Whangarei for Vyasaki's tour for Janmashtami up there for the premiere of the River of Freedom movie on Tuesday. Harinam with Vyasaki in Auckland. So we've got both those coming up. We'll give Prabhu another couple of minutes to join.
We can call him.
Yeah, try calling him on Facebook Messenger. 10:05, we're almost at 10:08 here in New Zealand. Let's see. Messenger.
Doo-doo-doo-doo.
We'll play some music while we're doing that.
Yep, let's do
can.
that.
Here we go.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
His phone. Oh, no.
It's out of time, but it's in key. Okay, so no no sign of Prabhu. So let's see. Can I drop a bookmark so that I don't lose my place in this book? Now, I'm going to share a page where I've got one of Henry Doktorski's books open. So let's have a look. Present, share screen, window, Kindle for Mac. Here it comes. There it is. So what happens if I make it a little bit bigger? Yes, look at that. Okay, and then I can make the text bigger. Can I make it wider? No, I can make the text bigger, but I don't know if I can make it wider. What? Page width. Here we go. This is what we need. Look at that. Okay, great. So let's just jump into wherever it is that I'm up to in here. It was Janmashtami Das actually who suggested Henry Doktorski as a Hrsikesh Das as a guest. This book is called Killing for Krishna, The Danger of Deranged Devotion, KKDDD, good alliteration, Killing for Krishna, The Danger of Deranged Devotion. 3 D's together, like that's a little bit overdoing it for me, but Killing for Krishna. I thought this book was going to be like Monkey on a Stick. Have you ever read Monkey on a Stick?
No, yet.
It's a hyper glamorized version of the New Vrindavan Leela, the shocking part. We heard from Tranakata about some of the other aspects of it, and I want to talk with Prabhu about that. But let's have a look at this. So, Janmashtami has been friendly toward me since the summer of 1979 when I taught music at the Nandagram school. When I first met him, he was carrying firewood into the school basement, and he went out of his way to point out the poison ivy so I wouldn't get a rash. In the early 1980s, I used to visit Kaladri in his Bahulavan office, sometimes when I was back from the PIC. It's going out and collecting money on the street. He was always on the phone, but he was also always friendly to me. Dharamutma was my traveling Sankirtan leader for 6 or 7 years, about 1980 to 86. During that time, he never gave me any reason to doubt his integrity. During those days, before the invention of cell phones, I counted on him to answer his landline phone at any hour of the day or night in case I got separated from my partner, arrested, and needed to get bailed out of jail. Dharamutma was always dependable. I trusted him. I didn't get to know Hayagriva until 1989, when he was bedridden due to bone cancer. I was taught early on to avoid devotees who did not follow the principles strictly. But at that time, he lived at Bhaktipada's house, and whenever I visited Bhaktipada several times a week, I would always spend time chatting with Hayagriva, who used to make me laugh with his humor despite his painful condition. So this is Hayagriva, the editor of the first edition of the Bhagavad Gita.
And Bhaktipada, isn't he Bhaktitirtha Swami?
No, that's Kirtanananda Swami.
Okay.
Yeah. I became friendly with Tirtha Swami not until December 2002, when I first wrote to him in prison, asking to hear his side of the story of Sulachand's murder from my New Vrindavan history book manuscript. He replied, and we exchanged more than 200 letters from 2002 to 2017. What's this happening? Okay. Henry Doktorski is calling, so just give us 1 second. Take this call. Okay, so we have Henry Doktorski on the line, aka Hrsikesh Das. It was initiated by Bhaktipada, Kirtanananda Swami, but then later renounced him as his guru. And he looks like he's just attending to something in the background there, so we'll give him a second to... Here we go.
I'm very embarrassed. I mean, as a professional musician, if I'm late, it's like, people are depending on you to be there, like.
It's like Guns N' Roses flying in 6 hours late for the concert in a helicopter,
Well, I wouldn't put myself in that category here, but anyway, thank you for your patience. I'm really delighted to meet you guys and see what's happening and
thanks for making it work.
Glorify the Supreme Lord and point out demons. No, I'm really not like that. Okay, I'm settled down now. If you want to begin, you can begin.
Sure. Yeah, we were actually, because we started at 10 and we took the opportunity to read some of Killing for Krishna, The Danger of Deranged Devotion. Massive amounts of alliteration in the name there. And it was, even just in the small part we read, people who are familiar with the New Vrindavan Leela, there were enough names in that one page, for people to be like pointing out the demons kind of thing. But, it wasn't, I was just saying to Dana Devi, my wife, that she's never read Monkey on a Stick, but that was what I thought it was going to be like. Absolutely disagree with this idea. Okay, let's start from here. Okay, this is Daneshwara Das, disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He says, absolutely disagree with this idea. The two concepts are diametrically opposed and opposed to the Lord's statement in the Gita that there are two types of people in this world. Now, that's a reference to the title and the blurb explanation, which is the demon and the devotee. You remember we worked on that some weeks ago. Kirtanananda Swami is reported to have said the demon and the devotee reside in the same body.
Correct. The devil and the devotee are the two words he used, but it means the same thing.
The devil and the devotee. It kind of reminds me of that Native American saying, which you see on Facebook, which says there are two wolves inside of you. A white wolf and a black wolf, and which one will kind of win or dominate depends on the one that you feed the most.
Yeah.
You I don't know if you're familiar with the Harry Potter movies, but there's one, I think it's a beautiful scene where Sirius Black is speaking to Harry, and he says it's not that there are good people and Death Eaters. He said every one of us has some light and dark in all of us. And also, Lord Krishna says in the Mahabharata, when he's speaking of the death of Duryodhana, who was the great enemy of the Pandava brothers, Krishna says, no good man is entirely good, no bad man is entirely bad. And I believe
it. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the learned man, by comparison with himself, sees the the happiness and distress of the living entity, something like that. Let me find the exact quote. But the reason why I think of that is because, I'll be in the shower and just thinking about myself, and I'm like, I'm a demon in someone's narrative and a devotee in someone else's. And then for myself, when I look at myself, I'm like, which one am I? Could go either way,
Yeah, it's not. I personally don't think that the world is black and white, and there's a lot of gray areas.
Yeah, I mean, this is a little bit like I don't know what you'd call this. I'm just going to say it, but it's kind of like the two different perspectives. Like there's the first Star Wars movie. The Rebels, the Empire, and then there's like. If you go on YouTube, you can find it. It's like the story told from the Empire's view, where a band of insurgents blow up a federal, terrorists blow up a federal government installation, killing hundreds of thousands of innocent people.
Yeah.
It's like a different perspective on the same story.
Maybe I didn't. I give the impression I wanted. I still think that there is good and evil, and you can present what the what the evil side is saying is, I would consider propaganda. I mean, but that's my opinion. But as far as each person goes, I think there are some good and evil in everybody.
I found the verse I was referring to.
Some more good and others more evil, but
Bhagavad Gita 6:32 it says, he is a perfect yogi who by comparison to his own self sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and distress, O Arjuna. That's one thing I appreciated about your book, and I appreciate about it is it doesn't, it's not like, okay, this is the bad guy, and so everything about him is going to be evil. It's like, Bhaktipada, is at his Vyasa Puja, and then, someone gives him something and he laughs with an evil glee. It's like, it's not like that. The book isn't, I'm facetiously generating another version of how you can present these leelas where everything is sinister. It's like, he doesn't glance mercifully at the devotee. He has a sinister glance. It's like, it's all cast in that way. And that's really the way people like to view these kind of things, especially with Kirtanananda Swami. It's like, he's the bad guy, so everything he does has to be evil. And then we had Tranakarta on the show last week. Do you remember Tranakarta? Did you know him in?
I don't remember. Trinakarta, he did live at New Vrindavan in the late 70s. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, he said he was the head of security when Tri Yogi hit Kirtanananda Swami in the head with a metal bar.
So that was in the mid 80s then. I remember the name. I would probably remember his face, but I never really had a chance to associate with him.
Yeah, from what I know, you spent a lot of time out on the road rather than being present on the property in the thick of all the things.
It's about 7 years full-time traveling Sankirtan. We'd come back 3 days a month usually.
And so my first wife was there from 1986, and she knew you because you were famous as like the orchestral arranger, conductor, musical director. That's the word I'm looking for. You're the musical director. You played accordion. And then at the time when everything switched over, she said she basically joined. She moved onto the farm, and then they changed everything away from Sanskrit to English, got rid of the robes, went into these Franciscan robes and everything. She was like, what just happened? And we're kicked out of ISKCON. Like the weekend she moved in pretty much. And
oh man.
So she was very she never like sang the songs or anything like that, but she could remember them. And she said, this is me filtering what she said to me, about what happened, what is it now, 40 years ago, that you had like written a whole kind of liturgy in English with like modern kind of music and arrangement for the whole kind of program. Is that accurate, or is that like based on a true story Netflix?
I'm gonna just grab something here.
Sure.
That is all described in Gold, Guns, and God, Volume 8.
What great alliteration. Love it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, this is, Bhaktipada, I mean, he really wasn't all that fond of India. He actually hated to go visit India. I hear him talk sometimes, quite a few times. He doesn't like India. He doesn't like Indians. He even said that in a class one time. I don't like Indians, like that. So, but he decided, he thought to make Krishna consciousness more accessible to Westerners. We translated the Sanskrit and Bengali texts from the morning program into English. Actually, Hayagriva and Ramapati mostly did that. They were master poets. Beautiful. I thought it was beautiful English poetry. And then he asked me to set it to Western classical music, and we had our pipe organ in the temple. We had an orchestra. We had a choir, and many people just loved it. And as of course I did. I mean, I am a professional classical musician. Of course, the people who didn't like it didn't stay. And how long did your previous wife stay after the changes happened?
So she was there from 86 until maybe 90 or so. She took sannyas from Bhaktipada.
Oh my goodness, what was her name?
Her name was Supreme Truth Swami.
No kidding. And her name before that?
Talavan Devi Dasi.
The
She's
black
African
lady.
American.
Yeah,
That's her.
I remember. And you were married to her
Yeah.
prior to her to coming to New Vrindavan?
No, after. So she ended up in Asia, and then she was collecting in Taiwan and Malaysia, and then everything fell apart. Dave and Rita Swami had come to New Zealand to buy an island, apparently, for Kirtanananda Swami to make a preaching kind of training place. And then so he ended up here, Bhaktisiddhanta Swami, Chandrasekhar Swami, and Param Satya was in Asia, and she came over to New Zealand, and that's where I met her in like 97.
Oh, that's so interesting. I've sometimes wondered whatever happened to Supreme Truth Swami. In fact, there's a lot of people I wonder what happened to them also.
Yeah. Yeah, so she came down to New Zealand. We got married in 98, went to South America for 3 years and preached there, and then lived in Australia for 16 years. Came back to New Zealand for COVID, and then she left her body in 2021 from breast cancer.
My goodness.
Yeah. So that was that's my connection to New Vrindavan. I mean, and Dave Mrita Swami is my initiating guru. So I'm kind of like, have mixed feelings, or mixed, like people like it's all bad, it's evil and everything. It's like, it's kind of like people who are like English colonialism is all evil, the evil white man and everything. You're like, well, kind of like you have to have kind of like mixed kind of feelings about the whole thing.
Yeah, seeing the world in black and white is a type of fundamentalism, and I think fundamentalism is quite dangerous. And just an aside, that England was, of course, the sun never set on the English Empire. They just conquered all these other countries. However, all these other countries basically were kingdoms for the most part, all right, with a monarchy or a type of government where the people really didn't have any rights. But after 100 years, the English liberal thinking was transferred to all these colonies, and they became democracies. Just like in the Romans would conquer all these nations, and after several generations of oppression, then the people in those conquered nations became Romans themselves and became members of the Senate and of the ruling class in Rome. See, so it's an idea which at first seems very, very, very repressive, but as that liberal mentality seeps through the conquered populations, they also become like all these nations are now like Great Britain. You know what I'm saying? And maybe it's all good in the end.
Yeah, I mean, those ideas, they maybe they are ideas that were ahead of their time in their implementation. I mean, like if we envision a world in which the world is Krishna conscious, people will be singing songs in their own languages. Why would they need to? Why would it be something alien? It would become their native culture, and that doesn't mean that they're speaking Sanskrit. It means that they'll be singing songs in English if they speak English.
Well, that's what Bhaktipada always said. He said, we're not trained to speak in Sanskrit. We think in English, at least in America here, and therefore when the prayers were translated into English and we could sing them in English, we were like connecting on a deeper level with the meaning of the text. That's what we found out. Of course, it was controversial, and after 6 or 8 years, his reforms were rejected, and the community returned to ISKCON. Of course, they had to once again do things the way that the Prabhupada had asked his disciples to do. And so a lot of people have told me, even decades ago, that Bhaktipada was ahead of his time. The idea, I think, is of doing the whole morning service in the vernacular language is valid, as you yourself indicated also. In fact, if you look at the history of the Bhakti movement in India, going back to the 11th and 12th centuries, those movements, they sang in the vernacular languages, whether it was Tamil or whatever, it formed in the
Bengali.
in the South, yeah, exactly. So anyway, so there's lots going on there. What were you reading from Krishna, the preface or something like that earlier today?
From the Killing for Krishna?
I think you said you were reading something from that, or was I mistaken?
Yeah, we were looking at this section here. We got right up to this part here. I became friendly with Tirtha Swami when he was in prison.
Yeah, boy, those are some memories, I tell you. That was 20
Where
years
was
ago.
this? What? 20 years ago, yeah. What is Tirtha doing now?
Well, he's a prisoner at Mount Olive Correctional Institute in West Virginia, and he's been there.
Still in prison.
Oh yeah, he's got 2 life sentences. One
Okay.
for killing Salochan in '86, and one for killing Chakradari in '83.
Wow.
We
So
had
he's-
Bhima Karma on, Chakradari's son,
yes,
previous episode.
he was very kind to speak to me at length about him and his father for Killing for Krishna, which was published 5 years ago now. He contributes a lot frequently on my Facebook page also. Every day I put up a post. Like today was, here's something. Yeah. September 1st, 1896. Abhay Charan Day, later known as His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktipada Swami, is born to a Calcutta family, and there's a picture of a painting of him.
Wow.
And then I do a paragraph on that, and people like to comment. And sometimes they're controversial issues also, like this. But and at the end of Gold Guns and God number 10, there's a timeline, 100 pages of timelines, and it goes from September 1st, 1896, 1896, excuse me, when Prabhupada was born, up until like July of 2023, and these significant events that are discussed in my books. They're history books, all right? Some of my Prabhupada disciple friends have told me that people are not going to develop spontaneous Krishna praying from reading these books, but they will learn to avoid fake gurus, all right, and learn to avoid a lot of troubles that they can get in when they're exploring the path of bhakti, things like that.
Yeah, there's of course that famous saying that those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. That's one thing I do notice about what happened at New Vrindavan is there is a reticence to do like a post-mortem on it. Even a lot of the leaders who were at New Vrindavan, And Paramsatya told me that at a certain point, there were more Prabhupada disciples at New Vrindavan than at any other project anywhere in the world. And Kirtanananda Swami had them doing a play. Radhanath Swami and Devotee Swami were in it, and they were like mocking the GBC, like, the GB me. And it was kind of like, this is the real ISKCON here. That was the mood. It was like, and it was like empirically, you looked at it, and there were more Prabhupada disciples engaged in full-time service there than anywhere else. So it did look like, hey, this is actually the real thing. And then, of course, things fell apart. And then a lot of those leaders from there were reintegrated into ISKCON. But I've never seen the class where it was like, here's what, I learned from what went wrong at New Vrindavan and what you should look out for in the future to make sure you don't get caught up in the same thing. I've never seen that class or heard it.
Well, speaking for myself, if I had been involved with, with gross criminal or immoral activities, which I fortunately wasn't, it would be probably something I wouldn't want to be talking about now, especially if I had a respected position in a religious institution. I think it's kind of amazing to me that Krishna had gifted me the entire Swami Bhaktipada archives. All right, and that included Bhaktipada's personal correspondence, boxes and boxes and boxes of letters that he had written, and things, and trial transcripts and all these things, because there was a lot of classified information in there. And at the time, I had already rejected him some 10 years earlier, and he was in prison at the time. But this Krishna put at least tens of thousands of pages of documents into my hands. I had to rent a pickup truck to get them all back to Pittsburgh. I had to make several trips where I stored them in my garage, and it took me 10 years to read through them. But when I got to, there was one box that dealt with the murder of Sulochan, and when I was reading, and most of the, there was investigative reports in there. New Vrindavan had hired a private detective, maybe several, while they were preparing their case, to go to court. They wanted to get testimony from all these people, and there's a lot of candid things in there. And the most shocking to me was that there was about 12 different people involved in the murder conspiracy at New Vrindavan that I knew, that I was very friendly with, including several from Los Angeles who helped the hitmen to search out and find Sulochan. And at New Vrindavan, I was quite surprised and shocked to discover testimony from quite a few of the people who were interviewed, eyewitness people that were involved in the conspiracy, that one, the most beloved and humble sannyasi at New Vrindavan, was one of the big ringleaders of the murder conspiracy. In fact, Jyotirdham, who was in charge of all the telephone system, they had a big computer. And back in '86, computers were big compared to what they are now. And he had 106 or so different phone extensions and wires going all over the community. So he was in charge of the phones, and sometimes the temple president would say, I want you to wait for an important call coming in from California or something, and then you have to make sure it gets transferred to me or to whoever needs to talk about it. But to me, it was, Jyotirdham. He says that this very popular ISKCON guru and sannyasi actually ordered the murder. He was like the guiding force behind it. And this was all news to me. And so it was quite a surprise, you know. I mean, Krishna could have sent this archive to maybe someone who was maybe a Bhaktipada supporter, or maybe someone who was like really dedicated in ISKCON to establish growth, and they probably would have burned it or taken it to a river and just dumped it in like that, because it's very incriminating evidence. So as it turned out, that archive I no longer have, because when I was finished with my research, I gave it to Bhaktipad's brother, Gerald Ham, who lives in Wisconsin, and he in turn donated it to the West Virginia University. They actually have a Swami Bhaktipada Keith Gordon archive there, and there's tens of thousands of pages for scholars. You know, they'll protect it and catalog it, and so that in the future, someone who maybe reads one of my books, they'll say, I'm not so sure that this really happened, you know, and then I give the reference in the endnotes where it is, and they can go to the Swami Bhaktipada archive and find that document and say, oh yeah, look at that, you know, he's just quoting what the report says, something like that. You know? So it's really been, for me, quite an exciting and amazing experience, discovering all these things that are like classified stuff that I never knew about. And I lived at Newberdom for 15 years, and the last, I don't know, 8 years or so, I was fairly close to Bhaktipada. I could just walk into his house and walk into his room and sit down and chat with him, which I did many times, usually, especially during the new music situation. I'd be up there 3 or 4 times a week, you know, to discuss different things. And sometimes I just go up to hang out. And so it was, and I didn't know this stuff, you know, and so I kind of like took it as my sacred duty once I received this enormous archive and discovered some of the, I guess I call them secrets. It's just history. It's just history, and I wanted to share that with people, and somehow it turned into a project. I began it in 2002. It's finally completed this year. 12 volumes of books, and it was like my service, you know, to do this. Of course, a lot of people hate my books, even before they see them. You shouldn't talk about things like this. It's bad for preaching. It'll make, in fact, not too long ago, there was a message on Facebook, you know, from what was his name? He's a Prabhupada disciple. He's famous for making deities, which he's been doing for like 50 years. He carves the murtis, the Prabhupada murtis. That's what it is. He made a post and he said, Doktorski is just a demon. He said and he was referring to the first volume of Gold Comes and God. I'm going to grab it right here. This is there's Kirtanananda Swami. Actually, no, he's not even a Swami. I think he's not. He's just Kirtanananda Das Brahmachari. And of course, there's Prabhupada sitting there at the bottom. This was Thompson's. I'm trying to get the light here so you can see Thompson Square Park. So, what was my train of thought? Remember what I was? I pulled this book out for a reason. I was talking about
Doktorski's a demon. His first book, he said in his first book.
You shouldn't be talking about this.
Anyway, it's been an exciting adventure, and I've made many friends who appreciate the history, and enemies also. In fact, he said I was a demon for even talking about Keith and Howard. That's Kirtanananda and Hayagriva's life before meeting Prabhupada, because they were rather debauched beatniks, or between beatniks and hippies that era, and they would. I mean, some devotees I know, they read these first few chapters about their life living as bohemians in New York City, and sexual activities that they participated in, and they're ready to puke because people they consider homosexuality very dirty. But I agree. But he wrote in the archive was 2 volumes by Hayagriva, manuscripts. He was writing his autobiography back in 1965, 1966, and he talks about all the stuff these guys used to do. Like meeting guys in the subway restrooms and doing and all sorts of stuff like that. And to me, it's just giving background on these characters that became, who became ISKCON guru. But anyway, this Prabhupada disciple was saying that nobody wants to know, no one should even know about that or want to know about what, because a Vaishnava, generally their past life is not really given much weight. All right, once you reform your activities and chant Hare Krishna and develop a taste for devotional service, then your life really begins. All this stuff they're not interested in, but I thought it was really, really interesting because it shows who those 2 men were when they were in their 20s, and because it came back again. At New Vrindavan, both of them were not following the regulative principles. But it was all kept hidden. I call it the secret inner sanctum. About a handful, there may have been 6 or 10 men throughout the 70s and 80s who were part of this club, I would call it, but they were protected. Prabhupada protected them. When Gopinath, today he's known as His Divine Grace, Radha Vrindavan Swami, lives in India. He was Prabhupada's greatest sycophant and protector and defender and supporter for decades and decades and decades. But anyway, the fellow who designed the palace, Prabhupada's Palace of Gold, Bhagavatananda, he had a young son, and the son might have been 6 years old. I don't know. And he found out, this was back in 1983, after the palace had been built. But Bhagavatananda had been there about 14 years at New Vrindavan since 1969. Anyway, Bhagavatananda found out that his son had been sexually molested by Gopinath, who was at the time the head pujari at the temple of Bhagavatananda. Previously, some years earlier, his wife had told him that one of the brahmacharis tried to touch your breasts, right? And this stuff happens, all right. You get, especially the men, they're starved for sex, and it comes out in kind of weird ways. So anyway, this brahmachari, she told her husband.
Just 1 second, Prabhu. There's a couple of things. There's a comment from Janeshwar Das. He says it's very difficult to hear you. I don't know if there's anything that you can do about your sound. Is there any background noise there?
No, it's probably just an old laptop, which I bought about 20 years ago.
Maybe put the volume up.
No, that's max. Do you have headphones?
Okay.
I have headphones, but I don't know how that would help my voice.
Do they have a microphone in them?
No, the phones don't have a microphone, no.
Oh, what we could try.
I can just bring my mouth closer like this. How's that?
Amazing. The other thing is that Dana Devi has to leave now.
Okay.
So you're in the story about Bhagavatananda at the moment, but is there anything that you wanted to ask or say before you go, and then you can listen to the response later?
Yeah, I guess I don't know how it's gonna progress this, because the door is open for anything to come out. I guess what we need to do is what we know need to know as devotees and new devotees is about what exactly happened in the past and what is the trace coming into play with these so-called swamis. Some of them are posing as saintly, but in the background there is something else, a different world happening for them. So it's good to know who these people are, how they carry their past life in such a secret that nobody else knew about it, or some people knew about it and still they're becoming too what do you call it? Venerados, respected or worshipped, you see. And some people are so innocent because these so-called swamis are excellent at keeping the secrets. And the people that have around them, they're excellent at actually contributing to that. And the innocent are left there thinking these people are saintly when reality is not that. And we can see through this life of this gentleman, Bhaktipada, and his whole team of people. So thank you for exposing that. And also it's going to help the people to realize not every human being that are in the saffron actually are Vaishnavas. They're posing as Vaishnavas for sure.
Well, they might be Vaishnavas, but they may not be on the standard or the level that they're
No,
posing.
they're not. But what we need now is people actually to be Vaishnavas and to act as Vaishnavas behind in the secret life or in the private life, and also in the public life. It has to be congruent, their behavior. Yeah. Okay. Prabhu, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. And I will hear more of your the podcast.
You can listen while you're in the car.
I will listen. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. So yeah, that's kind of like there's an open loop there. Just as you're saying, Prabhu, their past life. You know, some devotees are like, it shouldn't play a part. You should forget about it. But as you say, it came back, and it did actually impact what was happening there. And it's kind of like that saying, every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. But that it did come back. And I see this, what happened at New Vrindavan is the same thing in terms of the organization. It's part of the past of the organization. And you know, it's kind of like, oh, but that was in the past. Now, you know, let's all move on from that now. But like Dhanadevi's saying, you know, it's kind of like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's kind of like, well, what happens if that past comes back again? Like, you know, what, we just make the same kind of, this is what I always think about, because I talked with Param Satya about it over and over again. Like, how'd that happen? What did it look like when you were there? Like, how did you not? Everybody now in retrospect is like, I would never go along with that. I would be calling him out. And it's like, yeah, but how did this happen? Like, and is it happening to us right now and we can't see it? What does it look like when you're inside it, right? Like, yeah. Those are the kind of things I grapple with.
Yeah, you're right. And I don't think that there's a simple and easy solution to that, because people, if they have the power and they are acting contrary to the religious principles, they're going to do their best to hide it. And as we saw at New Vrindavan, even to the point of ordering murders, to assassinations to people who are trying to expose the anomalies going on with the leadership, such as Chakradhari did in 83, and Salochan tried to do in 84, 5, and 86. So it's, boy, you know, it's like, and that thing, I call it deranged devotion. And when your hearts and your minds are captivated by a charismatic individual who is not on the Uttama Adhikari platform, when you become selfless, all right, when the ego is gone and your sole aim in life is to serve Krishna as the best you can, without expecting honor, reward, maha plagues, not to mention a gross sensual pleasure, which was the case at Vrindavan with Bhaktipada and Hayagriva and a number of others. So it's, boy, I tell you, and then the disciple who is caught up in this, as I was, I thought Bhaktipada was this really great soul, and in some ways he was, but he wasn't what he was pretending to be, and that is the self-realized Uttama Adhikari. In fact, even in the early 80s, the other ISKCON spiritual masters. Can you still hear me? Is the sound better? No.
I'm just trying something here.
All right. Anyway, and Bhaktipada really was respected throughout the whole ISKCON world, and many of the acharyas, Hridayananda said he was a pure devotee. Jayapatakta glorified his service of building the palace. Gurupad, Satsvarup, of course, he always admired Kirtanananda ever since Satsvarup first started coming to the 26 Second Avenue temple. And so myself, as a new devotee, and we hear all this praise from the whole movement, why should I not surrender to Kirtanananda Maharaj and give him my heart? And it really is a blissful experience, surrendering to a charismatic individual. And it took me a few years before I finally realized the guy's just a cheater and a pretender. And I'd heard rumors for a long time, but I just simply dismissed them, as Prabhupada says a true disciple does. Prabhupada says, even if the spiritual master goes into a liquor store, you should think that he has some preaching business there, not that he's going to buy intoxicants to drink like that. So that's what we did. And but the deranged devotion is a very blissful and secure feeling. It's like everything is right in the world. Where your whole life you're under the protection of this advanced soul who's leading you back to Godhead, and you're serving him, and he's good too, Kirtanananda, about reciprocating that love with his surrendered servants. It was really very sweet relationship, but it took me a few years, and then finally I had to do my own investigation, and I talked to some of the boys. By that time they were men, they were adults, and they said, "Oh yeah, Bhaktipada, used to give us fellatio like that, and I believed my god brothers like that." So I confronted my spiritual master in a civil way. This is all described in Volume 9, and he denied everything, but I knew he was lying, and so I basically severed my connection from him, although it took some years before that emotional connection was gone, before that it severed away. It's really kind of insidious. You serve somebody for 15 years, and there's really a deep bond of love there. There certainly is, and then when you find out that your beloved is a cheater, well, the trauma can be long lingering, and can last for years. But I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful that I was able to disconnect, sever that connection, because I have god brothers and god sisters today who still worship Bhaktipada as the pure representative of the Vyas. And of course they hate my books. I don't think they'd even look at them, And one of my god sisters, actually, she still lives at New Vrindavan like this, and she was in the news lately because somebody found out that when she was offering artik to the deities, that she would put a little picture of Bhaktipada up on the altar there, and because he's expelled from ISKCON, and the ISKCON Child Protection Office even rendered a decision against him for sexually abusing boys at New Vrindavan. She had to stop that. But once you can sever that emotional connection with a cheating charismatic guru, eventually it becomes a liberating experience. I really feel that just seeing things as they are, in my mind, is an understanding. Uh, Severing that unholy loving connection is a liberating experience for me, even compared to the bliss that I experienced when I was under the effects of deranged devotion. So I've talked enough. Unless you have more questions.
Yes, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, let's do that. Another 10-15 minutes if it's okay.
Okay, great. So your books are called Guns, Gold, and God?
Gold, Guns, and God.
Gold, Guns, and God.
That's the 10-volume series, which is a biography of Kirtanananda Swami and a history of the New Vrindavan community. Prior to that, 2 other books were published: Killing for Krishna, which is about the conspiracy to murder Sulochan, and then 11 Naked Emperors, which is basically a history of the zonal Acharya era of ISKCON, from Prabhupada's passing in 77 up until 1987 or so.
Epic.
So,
yeah, read that one. So I have 2 questions. Okay, so the first one is, given that experience that you went through, and it's kind of like you have one read on reality, and then you find out later that the cognitive dissonance, that I was wrong, like my perceptions were off. I thought it was one thing and it was another, this confusing a rope for a snake kind of thing. How has that impacted your kind of like, now you're walking around and you're like, is this real? Like, it's like most people have never had that kind of level of like a disillusionment about their reality. Have you found that that's led you to question other things? Like you're kind of looking around going like, what is real in this world? Like how widespread and how deep is this deception, not just in the Hare Krishna movement, not just in ISKCON, but like in the outside world, like having experienced that for yourself. Like if people do this and they can get away with this, and this was just one little guy with a few people, what are people doing out there with like trillions of dollars? Like what's really going on in the world? Has it impacted your perceptions at all?
well, yes, certainly. After I left New Vrindavan in 94, and I moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, I began believing things if I felt there was sufficient evidence. In other words, just because a group of hundreds and hundreds of people say that, oh, this person is, a great man or something, I would look for the evidence. And certainly, I'm a lot more cautious than at that time when I was a younger person. By evidence, I've become a believer in the scientific method, and that is that, and a scientist he, if he believes that a water molecule is made from 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atoms, all right, he believe it to be true, but there's evidence that would prove that. And anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. So when people talk about a religious process as a science, I always ask the question, because suppose I have an infection and the doctor prescribes penicillin. All right, if I take that penicillin, the infection will go away. All right, whether I believe in science or not. See, science works because it's not based on belief; it's based on evidence. Now, I'm not saying religion is bad, but I am a lot more cautious about approaching religious concepts and ideas that don't have evidence to back that up. So essentially, rejecting Kirtanananda Swami was very difficult for me to do because of that powerful emotional bond I had with him, like a son with a father, and he never abused me. I was with him for 15 years, and we had a very sweet relationship. He always encouraged me to do my best, to be all I could be, to work hard for Krishna, help build New Vrindavan and spread Krishna consciousness like that. So, and then so that was very difficult to reject that. And since then I'm, as I said, a lot more cautious about believing things without seeing evidence to support that belief.
Mute. So my second question is about Srila Prabhupada. So, in the wider conversation at the moment, Vedic Inquirer, advancing child protection in ISKCON, one of the things that comes up is, if the as the saying goes, the fish rots from the head. How do we consider Srila Prabhupada's role in all this? He promoted Kirtanananda Swami and others, of the 11 naked emperors. In a sense, he created that organization. Not in a sense, he created that organization. How, for you personally, do you deal with that? And what's your kind of take on Srila Prabhupada and his role in the whole thing? And I guess your relationship with him now?
I talk about this in 11 Naked Emperors. There's a chapter, first, describing the whole history of the Zonal Acharya era, when the Zonals took over in 78, and then this guru started falling down, and then the Guru Reform movement, and all this stuff. After all that is said and done, I have a chapter called "The Buck Stops Here," and I ask if many of these negative events that happened in ISKCON after Prabhupada passed away were inherent in the organization from the beginning. And I don't, there's 2 ways to look at it. After discussing different things, I say there's 2 ways to look at this. One is Jesus Christ said, "You judge a tree by the fruits." And if the fruit is bad, hey, something's wrong with the tree, However, there is a second way to look at things. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that one, you're entitled to your service, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your service, of your labor. All right. So we look at that, and I say this in 11 Naked Emperors, and we look at Srila Prabhupada's life. He did his service, all right, preaching Krishna consciousness. And I don't see any instance where he directly disobeyed his guru. However, with the 11 zonal acharyas, we do see that. We do see that quite often. Their power had just gone to their heads, all right, and then they began abusing that power for the most part. I'm not saying all 12. I think some of them were a lot more honest than others, all right. But anyone who says yes, Prabhupada, by his mercy, promoted us to the stage of Uttama Adhikari, which was the party line back in 1978. And it was only Rameshwara who has his own, difficulties in maintaining his sadhana. It was only Rameshwara in 1980 who took his Vyasa-san out of the temple. He wrote a position paper saying that one should not imitate a Madhyama Adhikari, should not imitate the Uttama Adhikari, because then all hell is going to happen. And he at least recognizes that I am not a pure devotee and I don't deserve this worship and things like that. And what happened? The other zonal acharyas, they ganged up on him and said, no, you have to toe the party line, because behind the scenes, they're all cheaters, okay? All right? None of them are really on that exalted platform. But if you have to be part of the front. If one person starts, doubting, then our positions are all in danger now. And they told, Rameshwar himself told me, I think it was a Facebook message a few years ago. He said that the GVC told me that they were going to expel me from ISKCON and take away the BBT. And of course, Rameshwar was very attached to the BBT. He's been working on that since 1969 or something like that. He's been director for so long. He's very attached to Prabhupada's books. And I mean, Rameshwar could have said, okay, expel me. All right. But no, he put the Vyasas back in the temple. And then he wound up resigning anyway 6 years later, after some of his followers caught him in a shopping mall with a 15-year-old Gurukula girl or something like that. So my point here was that we don't see an example of Prabhupada disobeying the order of his spiritual master. And we know that, Prabhupada worked tirelessly to spread the message of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And I'm not saying he did everything in the best way possible, but I believe that he was sincere, all right, trying to follow his Guru Maharaj's instruction. And bad things happen, all right? Even while he was alive, bad things were happening like that, So I conclude that if you want to, repose your faith in Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and see him as your link to Krishna, all right, whether there's an intermediate link or not. I say that I don't see any harm in this, and we can understand that bad things happen sometimes, and it may not be because the tree has bad fruit because the tree is bad. All right, that there's different ways to look at things like that. So I hope that helps explain it's just my personal opinion. My, my personal opinion is really not worth very much. In my books, I take pains to keep my opinions out of the text. All right, it's like just like a scientist. All right, he doesn't impose his beliefs on the experiments he's conducting. I mean, you conduct the experiment, you see the result. All right, whether you believe it or not, there's a result from the experiment. So similarly, as a historian, I am merely trying to present the facts of history, and there's a lot of controversy there too. So I present both sides or three sides. I mean, in 11 Naked Emperors, you have the story, and then the two major offshoots or schisms that came from that was the Gaudiya Math ISKCON devotees who are following Gaudiya Math gurus because they couldn't handle the tension and the stress and the corruption that was going on in ISKCON at the time. So they went to someone they like maybe Bhakti Raksaka Shridhar Maharaj or Bhakti Vedanta Narayan Maharaj perhaps, and there's others also. They thought, well, here's a person who seems to be very advanced. Let me study with them. And the devotees I know personally that are following in the Gaudiya Math line, it seems to me, that they're advancing the Krishna consciousness. And then the second offshoot is the Ritvik people, and that started also when the zonal acharyas began abusing devotees, and people started thinking, well, looking into detail Prabhupada's letters and things and stuff like that. So I'm not advocating that you follow an ISKCON guru. I'm not advocating that you follow a Gaudiya Math guru, and I'm not advocating that you follow the Ritvik system, because my personal opinion means nothing, right? But I am saying that in my books I present both sides. I try not to let my opinions enter. I just present the facts or the testimony of people who are speaking about what they remember. Maybe they're wrong about some things. Maybe they got some of their facts mixed up. But I present the sides of the story, and I let the reader decide what they want to believe. All right. So in that way, just like a scientist, I think I try to be an honest historian and not cloud the story with my like you'll see so many books. I have seen a few books, let's put it this way, maybe about the Prabhupada poisoning issue. All right, and they're very adamant, but I mentioned it might have been in 11 Naked Emperors that Prabhupada also has a recorded conversation with Tamal Krishna Goswami where he says, Tamal asks him, Prabhupada, yesterday you said that you were poisoned, or you told the Kaviraj that you were poisoned. And Prabhupada says, no. He says, no, the symptoms were something like that, but I have not been poisoned. Now, I'm not saying he was poisoned or not. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And so I don't talk about it in my books, maybe one paragraph, all right, because it's already been written about some of the other books, and maybe some of the arguments are convincing, but I don't know the answer to that. So basically, I try to present history as it is, and I let the reader decide what they want to believe. All right.
Yeah.
Are we done?
Yeah, we are. I really appreciate that about your books. Where can people get them from? What's the best way for people to get hold of them?
Well, you can always find them on Amazon. Now, if if you want to purchase a full set, you should contact
Yes.
me directly, because I'll give you like this enormous discount.
Okay.
And I can ship to most places in the world. We can't ship to Russia right now, but there are countries that we can ship to. And you can also borrow the books and pass them on, and share them with others. But you can reach me. I have a website. Just look up my name, Henry Doktorski. There's a page that says contact. Has my email. Email's a good way to reach me like that.
Okay. Okay, we'll definitely be getting a full set of those books for our house.
Well, thank you so much.
It's an incredible, as you say, it's history. It's not like Monkey on a Stick, which was kind of speculative fiction, glamorizing Netflix kind of stuff. This is like History Channel, documentary, investigative journalism type stuff. And it really is. You decide. And at the end of it, you go, you know what? It is unclear what happened there, because these two people have different conflicting views. And it's like, that's what reality really is like, and you got to navigate your way through that somehow. And I really appreciate that. And the other thing I really appreciate is, here we go. Namras is up in the comments. History is biased. Whereas Napoleon Bonaparte said history is a set of lies agreed upon. But yeah, it's kind of pick a path. And the other thing I really appreciate about the books is that it does leave you with what I think is important, the ability to appreciate the personalities and say, you know what? Bhaktipada's a flawed personality, but he's not like a sinister, the emperor evil character, lightning coming out of his fingers, drinking the blood of children, nonstop. And that's all he is. He's a complex character who did a lot of service for Srila Prabhupada, created something really great. And for whatever reason, the character flaws in him surfaced under pressure, and, the whole thing fell to pieces. And out of those pieces, so many things have come and continue to come. And he's a complex character.
I think he may have been more complex than most of us.
Amen. Yeah. So yeah, thank you, Prabhu, for your time today, and thank you for your service over the last 21 years, in creating this and making this available to the future for people to take advantage.
Maybe I can tell one more short story about that.
Please.
It was I came to New Vrindavan in '78. I was 22 years old, and I left I rejected my spiritual master in '93. I finally moved out in '94, and it was in 2002. I was visiting New Vrindavan. I mean, I have many friends there still, and when I lived in Pittsburgh, I would come up every couple months or something, visit my buddies and stuff like that. But anyway, at one visit, this was 2002, and that was 8 years after I left. Who should I see but this Prabhupada disciple from Toronto, Satyavrat, and he had lived in New Vrindavan in '90, and he was a really fine violist. He would just play so beautifully, and he was a great sight reader. I sat him down at the first chair in the orchestra, and I threw music at him, and he could play whatever I threw at him. He was actually the best musician we had in the orchestra. So we're sitting at a picnic table outside under a tree outside the temple, and he's telling me all these stories he remembered about making music for Radha Vrindavan Chandra and music for the devotees, and of course, I'd lived that, but in the past, I guess it was about 12 years since we had made that music, since 1990 to 2002. I had forgotten a lot of the stories he told me, and I thought, oh my Lord, wow, this is like, I don't want this stuff to be lost, because we really created some gorgeous music there. Thousands and thousands of temple services from '86 to '94, and which you can hear some of them on YouTube. If you go to Henry Doktorski.com, look for Goldman's, and then volume 8. And scroll down, there's a link to all these sound files I put up YouTube from old recordings we had from New Vrindavan. I thought it was like wonderful music, and many other people thought so also. But anyway, so he's telling me these stories, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I don't want to forget this. I should write an article about the music at New Vrindavan, because it was a radical thing to do. I mean, use a pipe organ and the kettle drums and an orchestra and English lyrics and stuff. I said, even if it only lasted 8 years, I said, it should be, there should be something written about this, so it won't be lost forever. So I started writing about the music, and I had a fairly large collection of New Vrindavan publications myself. Maybe I'm a hoarder in some ways, but I found all these interesting articles, and I'm reading through all this stuff. So as I'm doing this article, maybe it's about 50 pages. I said, well, I have to explain what the music was like before we did this reformation. So I had a chapter about ISKCON music, and then I had to explain how did it all end. So that was, and that was because Bhaktipada was caught in the back of this Winnebago van during the drive from the Chicago Parliament of World Religious New Vrindavan. The curtains opened up, and the driver saw him in the back with this teenage male Malaysian disciple. And so I had to tell that story too, and then it just, the article got bigger and bigger, and pretty soon it was a 150-page book. And then I said, well, what the hell? I got all this information. I might as well tell a little bit about the history of New Vrindavan. So it's getting bigger and bigger. And in 2003, I had like 600 pages. And I showed it to Tapa Poon. She said, oh, come, I got something to show you. And he took me up to this old trailer truck. And inside was the Bhaktipada archives and all these letters. I said, oh my God, I feel like Captain Kidd. No, I feel like I discovered Captain Kidd's buried treasure. And so then one of my other god brothers, he has another portion of the archive. He says, why don't you come to my house and I'll show you what I got. So I go to his house in Pennsylvania. And there's these 2 volumes by Hayagriva, typewritten on paper. Hayagriva typed them himself. And there are only 2 copies in existence, telling about his autobiography, how he met Keith, how he met his lover for his lifelong lover, at a gay bar in Chapel Hill when he was 20 years old. Keith was 23, like that. I said, oh my God, this can't be just a history of New Vrindavan. It's got to be a biography of Kirtanananda Swami also. So anyway, so the thing got bigger and bigger. Now it's like 12 volumes, but I'm done. I'm so happy I'm finished. It's like the Palace Marathon. We worked 6 months, like sleeping like 4 hours a night, helping to get that palace finished before the dedication ceremony of September 2nd, 1979. And then when it was all finished, it was such a relief. We were so happy to see Prabhupada sitting on his altar there at the palace. In fact, that marathon, for me, it went on even during the festival because the Prabhupada Murti was on a palanquin coming into the palace, and there's like 1,000 devotees there and 7 ISKCON spiritual masters, chanting away. And in the temple room, in the altar room with the shut doors, Bhagavatananda and myself are installing his Sringasa. All right. It's got like 8 columns and a roof, and it's made of plaster, and it's very tedious work. The measurements have to be exact. And so the Prabhupada deity is sitting there waiting to come on, and us 2 are still putting this thing up, his you'll see the picture, like that. And we feel that like the walls are shaking from all the devotees in the kirtan hall. They're like dancing Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. And so finally we finish it, and then we move out. The Pujaris bring the murti in, and they decorate them, and finally the doors open, and it was like it was the most amazing thing. Most amazing thing. You can read that in Gold Guns and Dud, Volume 3. Okay, I talked enough now. It's been almost an hour and a half. Anyway, thank you so much, Sita Buddy Prabhu. I really love talking about Vrindavan and Krishna and Prabhupada. And, I really do love talking about my former spiritual master, even though he was a crook. All right, because no good man is entirely good, and no bad man is entirely bad, as Krishna says in Mahabharata.
And just one last thing: does Taliban Devotee / Supreme Truth Swami appear in any of the books?
Her name is mentioned. She is one of Bhaktipada's female sannyasis. So I forget. I think that's Volume 3 also. But she's mentioned. But I didn't know her very, very well, and a lot of that time she was out in the Far East collecting money. So, and I wasn't part of that. So, but her name is mentioned there. If it means anything.
I'll get the set and I'll keep an eye out for her.
All
Thank you
right,
for your service, Prabhu.
My pleasure. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Harival. There you have it, folks. Henry Doktorski, aka Hrsikesh Das, initiated by Bhaktipada, aka Kirtanananda Swami, aka Keith Ham, one of the early disciples of Srila Prabhupada, who became one of the 12 acharyas, or 11 naked emperors after the disappearance of Srila Prabhupada, and the author of the 12 volumes, Gold, Guns, and God, the book Killing for Krishna, and the book 11 Naked Emperors, which you can get from Amazon.com, or you can contact Henry Doktorski III on Facebook. Or if you go to henrydoktorski.com, I think the site is, let me pull it up. henrydoktorski.com. Yeah, henrydoktorski.com. And you can get in contact with him from there and order the books directly. As Henry said, if you want to order like a whole set, the best way to do it is to order it from his website, directly from him via email, because he'll give you a significant discount. There we go. I'll put it along the bottom of the screen. Yeah, fascinating conversation. I didn't get to mention Mukunda Das, who is prabhupadtruth.org UK. He published Suachand's book, actually. But he considers Suachan to be... I'll see if I can get him to come on the show to talk. Since he published The Guru Business, Suachand's book, he deserves the opportunity to speak about that. What else is there for me to say about this episode? I've been to New Vrindavan. I went there in 2010. And was it 2010? Yeah, it was 2010. Went to the 24-hour kirtan there. I was awake for like 48 hours over 2 nights. I met with Madhava Ghosh after the 24-hour kirtan. I was so tired I fell asleep while I was talking to him at his house. Yeah, I saw the place. I went to the palace, Prabhupada's palace. It was basically deserted. Oh, Namras was there in 2010. Yeah, Madhava. So, I mean, I don't remember seeing you there. Janavi was there. Madhava, Sachinandan Swami. Jai Sita was playing cello. Janavi was playing violin. I was doing the mixing, and it was kind of tough because whenever there was a break, they would both take a solo. And I was like, why doesn't one of you take the solo and let the other one take the solo, but they would both take the solo at the same time. So it was hard for me to do the mixing. Oh yeah. Okay. You do remember me there. Yes. I led kirtan and shed tears. Yeah. It was actually very intense for me being there after everything that I kind of knew about of what happened at New Vrindavan and my my first wife's pastimes there, and how epic New Vrindavan is. New Vrindavan is just an epic chapter in ISKCON history. A lot of the leaders in ISKCON now were at New Vrindavan, and people don't talk about it that much. But here's Henry Doktorski's books, 12 volumes of them, Gold, Guns, and God, Killing for Krishna and 11 Naked Emperors, but Gold, Guns, and God specifically dealing with the entire narrative, dramatic arc of New Vrindavan. I'm going to America at the end of this month, the United States, so I'm not going to be able to make it to New Vrindavan, but I might be able to get my set while I'm there of Gold, Guns, and God, see if I can maybe get them shipped to your place, Namras, and then pick them up while I'm there. Whack them in my suitcase, bring an empty suitcase, and then carry them back. Next episode we have coming up, it's not scheduled yet, but episode number 32 is going to be with Kongtaya Das. We had some discussion about what we're going to call it, and the name that Kongtaya Prabhu wants to go with is Defending Srila Prabhupada from Criticism Without Fanaticism is the topic. And that's going to happen after Janmashtami. Srila Prabhupada in Public Opinion, Defending the Founder Acharya from Criticism Without Fanaticism. Of course, we're going to have to mention the ISKCON Indian Scholars Board response to his book, the book itself, why he wrote it, what he wants to achieve with it. And then I will steelman some of the objections of the Indian ISKCON Indian Scholars Board to the book and its kind of premises. And then we'll see how Kongtaya Prabhu can deal with those objections live. Namras was saying the other day, why don't they just get on the same episode together? There's a whole thing about how Kongtaya doesn't want to debate Krishna Kirti, but I'm kind of happy to be sort of the man in the middle because I'm learning from both sides. Plus, it gives me the opportunity to do something. Okay, happy Janmashtami to everyone who's still watching and everyone who's watching it in the future. Either the Janmashtami that's coming in just days from now, or the next one in 2024 or 2025, or whenever it is that you have to be watching this episode. We're going to be going up to Whangarei. Vaishnava Prabhu is arriving in a couple of days. We're going to go up to Auckland. We're going to go to the premiere of River of Freedom, Heart of the Protest. It's a 90-minute long documentary, feature-length movie. No, it's not 90 minutes. It's like 2 hours, actually. It's 2 hours or 2.5 hours long. It's going to be showing in the movie theater, the Civic Theatre in Auckland. We're going to the premiere of the thing. We're going to do Harinam outside with Vyasaki, then with a bunch of devotees who were at the Parliament protests in 2022, and Vyasaki and his wife Kishori Devi were going to watch the movie. So we'll actually be broadcasting live from there, some of the Harinam, and then we'll broadcast interviews with people on the red carpet of the premiere. So that's the next episode of Vaishnava Voices is going to be live from the premiere of River of Freedom with Vyasaki. That's happening on Tuesday next week, which will be Monday in the nighttime for the United States. Vyasaki is the GOAT, the greatest of all time. Yeah, the godfather of Kirtan. We're going to be rocking it out. Okay, folks. Param Vijayate, Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Total world victory of Hare Krishna. Let's go with we'll go out with the outro and the dulcet tones of Gora Prabhu and Prajumna leading Kirtan. Hare Krishna.
Okay.
Okay. Take 4.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, oh Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,